I'm Selma Schimmel in Milan, Italy. We are at the ESMO Congress, where not only are we speaking to medical oncologists, we are also working and speaking with advocates. And I'm joined by Kathy Oliver, who is the co-director of the International Brain Tumor Alliance. And Kathy, it was great you participated with us in Advocacy in Action yesterday, and so much of what you said was quite compelling, and we needed to have more time with you. So thanks, Kathy, for joining us again today.
It's a pleasure, Selma. Thank you for asking me. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the challenges that advocates face, which are numerous. And they're particularly difficult when you are advocating for a rare cancer like brain tumors, which is the area of cancer that I represent. And our challenges are many. Our advocates are few because of the nature of the disease. It's horrific. Very short survival times generally, and we just don't have the armies of advocates available to help us. But nevertheless, we work very hard, and we're trying to make a difference.
What do you think are some of the primary differences between the world of cancer advocacy in the U.S. versus what you're trying to accomplish here in Europe?
I think on the whole, we actually have a lot to learn from each other. America leads the way in many respects in advocacy, and a lot of our approaches are similar. We are finding our voice here in Europe, partly based on what we see happening in America, but also we have to approach it slightly differently because, of course, in Europe, we have many, many different countries, many different languages, dialects, cultural attitudes. And actually, it's the cultural attitudes that I find quite challenging sometimes. One of the things we try and do as an organization, the International Brain Tumor Alliance, is to encourage the establishment of patient support groups for brain tumors in countries where they don't exist. And we started to do this thinking it would be easy. But when we came up against certain cultural attitudes towards cancer in certain countries, stigma, backlash on employment, we realized that not everywhere was like America or Britain, where I live, and there were different challenges according to the cultural attitudes.
What about pediatric tumors? We know the advances that are happening in the United States. What about pediatric tumors in Europe?
Well, again, I think we're gathering speed here. We do have some specialist pediatric brain tumor patient organizations, for example. There are one in Italy that I can think of, quite a large one in the United Kingdom. But advances in pediatric brain tumors have been quite good, but of course nothing is enough when you're dealing with this kind of cancer. And I think in comparison to the US, we still need to kind of keep pushing hard, whereas I know certain pediatric organizations in the US are extremely active and extremely efficient in what they do.
What are some of your greatest frustrations as an advocate that perhaps when you look at, and you're an American by birth,
Exactly.
even though you live now in the UK,
Yes.
that you think can be improved on, or where the U.S. advocates, since we've been doing it a long time and we're well established, could help our European counterparts in their mission?
Well, as you point out, I am an American and I've lived in Europe for 36 years now, so I believe that I can look at this with the two perspectives. And I do get frustrated sometimes because I feel that we need to really pull rare cancers out of the shadows on the cancer map. And I think that in the US, advocacy is very, very powerful. And we do need to take some of that power here and bang our drum loudly. My mother always says the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I think perhaps here in Europe, we're very, very good at being squeaky wheels. But there's always something else to learn.
You know, on the subject of rare cancers, I'm finding recently through literature and I think observation and instinct, the more we learn about the genomics of cancer and the molecular characteristics of cancer, I think we're going to see a cross-section of cancers that may be perceived as common cancers, that within those common cancers, based on genomic profiling, that we're going to be discovering certain rare types of common cancer and those rare components within the more common cancers are going to raise the profile of rare cancers in general.
You're absolutely right. And actually, we participated in a press conference yesterday here at ESMO where Professor Paolo Casali said very much the same thing. Many cancers that are now common are going to be rare because of all the subtypes
Yes.
that are being discovered.
Yes.
And that, I think, is an interesting, very interesting challenge. Of course, you can have a double-edged sword with genomic profiling and in relation to access to therapies, because the assays that determine whether a particular patient is going to react to a particular therapy do need to be validated so that they are absolutely 100% accurate, because there is always the danger that a patient who might be a slight exception would benefit from a therapy.
Because of where we're at, looking at the genomic characteristics of cancer, I mean, you go back 25 years ago, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Now, with personalized medicine and the importance of understanding the molecular components of cancer, I think the role of cancer advocacy internationally is going to be more important than ever, because it is through our combined efforts as U.S. advocates, European advocates, we had advocates from Japan, that we're the ones that are going to have to really hold firm in driving technology, doing something with our tissue exchange of our own specimens, and driving forward new modalities, not of only screening and diagnosis, but of treatment. It's really on us. I believe that we have an opportunity and a huge task ahead.
I'm always impressed with how much advocates do know, both in Europe and the US, from a scientific viewpoint. And again, at the press conference yesterday, it was stated that one of the doctors said that when he does patient conferences, he uses the same slides that he uses at the scientific conferences, because he understands that patients are very well educated and know what he's talking about.
And when we started our work here a decade ago, my sense of what I've observed is that the European patient is becoming, 10 years ago, it was all new. They were very intimidated. You put them in a room with a doctor, doctors weren't necessarily too receptive, patients were intimidated. I can see over the last decade the dramatic changes that are happening, and through this process of discussion, how much more sophisticated the European patients are becoming.
Absolutely. Very well educated, very knowledgeable, very determined and tenacious in Europe here. And I'm very proud to be a part of the European patient advocacy movement as well as the global one. So I think we're gathering strength, gathering speed, and we're going to make a real difference.
I look forward to not ongoing discussions with you, but actually hands-on work with you, Kathy.
That would be great, Selma. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.